need to start and grow a six-figure bookkeeping business. So we are live on YouTube. So on my YouTube channel, we are live in my Facebook group, and we are also live on LinkedIn. So if you're on one of those channels but not the others, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel to get notified of new videos. Join my Facebook group because there's lots of great conversations in there and information sharing. I release all kinds of new content there, helping you grow your business. And also connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay, so today we do these once a month. We're doing an Ask Me Anything. Okay, in other words, the floor is yours. I'm going to open it up to questions, whatever you guys have, whatever's on your mind in terms of burning questions about starting and growing a six-figure bookkeeping business. As you know, maybe you know, if you don't, you will. Demand for bookkeepers right now is at an all-time high. And so that means it's a great time to either get started, or if you've already started, to start applying the things out there that are working in terms of marketing, in terms of pricing your services, all of that fun stuff. Okay, so I'm going to answer all of the questions. So whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, feel free to type your questions into the chat. I'll be going through those and I will be answering those. So we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. All right, starting, growing, advisory, consultations, pricing, getting clients, getting certified, learning how to be a great bookkeeper, all that fun stuff. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and open it up to questions. Hey, Mario, good to see you on LinkedIn. Lakeisha, great to see you. You're on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, by the way, there is a link underneath the video where you can give my streaming software permission to see your name so I can see who I'm interacting with. On LinkedIn and YouTube, I can see who I'm interacting with. On Facebook, I can't unless you give permission like Philip has. Philip, hey, good to see you from Mobile, Alabama. Hope I'm pronouncing that. I don't know if it's mobile or mobile. Anyway, let's open it up for questions. And the first question I get, and so we'll just go through it right off the top as you guys are typing your questions in, is how much you can really make as a bookkeeper. And, obviously we want to get into whatever it is we're doing professionally. We want to get into something that's fulfilling, something that we have a genuine interest or passion for. We want to do something that really helps others, ideally. But at the same time, we've got to provide for our families, right? We've got financial goals that we want to meet. And I don't know about you, but if you're paying attention to the news, you know that inflation is at like a 40-year high. It might be at an all-time high. I'm not quite sure. Anytime you check the news, you got to be ready for anything, and it could send your day into a tailspin depending on what's out there. But inflation is high. Prices are high. Can we stop buying milk and bread and gas and all the things we need to survive? No, we can't. We can't do that. So what can we do? What are some of the solutions? Well, let's set aside some of the investing opportunities that are out there because everybody should have kind of a smart investment strategy. But if you don't have capital to invest, or even if you do and that money is working for you, what else can you do to fight inflation? Well, put simply, you can make more money. Okay, you can make more money. And when you're at a job, a 9-to-5 job, you've got a limitation on how much more money you can make. Okay, your salary is subject to performance reviews and raises and all kinds of different things, okay, that you have no control over, but you can make more money. You absolutely can. If you're willing, and this is for those of you who haven't yet gotten started, if you're willing to learn a skill, okay, learn a skill. And that skill that is really popular and in very high demand right now is bookkeeping. Demand for bookkeepers is at an all-time high. So it can allow you to make more money to help you fight all of this nonsense that's going on out there in the economy. And so how much can we really make? Let's just get down to brass tacks. And I'm going to share my screen here. And I think I've done this before, but it's really valuable. It's really, really valuable to have this information so that we can make good decisions on what we need to be doing. So let's go ahead and share my screen. I just did a quick Google search for Intuit Rate Survey. You can do the same and you'll get the same results. Intuit is the company that makes QuickBooks, and QuickBooks is the number one accounting bookkeeping software on the market, period. Okay. And so every year they do an annual survey. They take a survey of bookkeepers and bookkeeping business owners and CPAs and all kinds of different accounting professionals. And they ask them a bunch of questions. And one of those is how much, what are you charging your clients? And so let's just go ahead and click on into here and we'll see. And you can see this for yourself. This is the new one that just came out in January. So just a few months ago. And if you scroll down, you'll see all kinds of great information about, kind of how they conducted the survey and all that fun stuff. If you scroll down to average hourly rates, this is the section that you want to pay attention to. This cool little diagram here. As you can see, bookkeeper is denoted by this blue color, this darker blue color here, bookkeeper. So you don't need to be certified. You're not a CPA. You're not an EA. That blue line there, accounting and bookkeeping, some basic accounting services, $76 an hour, which is incredible, right? I mean, it's like that translates into $158,000 per year. If you've seen some of my ads out there on Facebook or YouTube or some of my posts where I talk about $158,000 a year, I get all kinds of comments underneath that say, that's crazy, or you're full of it, or this or that. And I'm like, hey, I'm just the middleman here. All right. This is real life. This is Intuit, a publicly traded company that's done a study that has determined these numbers. Okay. $76 an hour is what, if you're a competent bookkeeper, which bookkeeping is something anybody can learn how to do as long as you have a genuine interest in learning how to do it and you have a genuine desire to do right by clients, you can earn $76 an hour. Now, I have a mentorship program where I help people, start and grow their business, and we don't charge hourly. I don't recommend you charging hourly, but some bookkeepers do. So this represents that number. But when you are able to start to price your services based on the value you're able to bring to the table, instead of how much time you're spending on someone's books, you're able to realize rates that are much higher than this. And people in my program are typically able to realize rates that are around $150 an hour. But again, we're charging a flat fee. Okay, we're charging a flat fee. We might look at a client's books and say, hey, that's going to cost about $750 a month to handle your books. And it might only take us 4 hours to do their books. We leverage technology to automate a lot of the data entry and a lot of the kind of transactional processing data. So we're able to gain efficiencies. So we're able to then help clients on a higher level. Okay. Now that we're able to do the bookkeeping very efficiently, we're still delivering high value. So we're charging high fees because, again, clients want value. Okay. What benefits am I seeing in my business? But we're not spending all day on the books. Okay. We're working very, very efficiently. All right. So that's how you can realize even higher rates. But hey, let's just be honest, $76 an hour, that's not bad. When I got started, when I decided I wanted to start my bookkeeping journey, I got a job as a bookkeeper at a local accounting firm. They were paying me $20 an hour. And I was, what was I? 39 years old, 39, 40 years old. So this is pretty good. This is pretty darn good. So that's what's possible. That's not me. Don't leave a comment saying, Bill, you're full of it, or at least not because of this. I am just passing along the information from the latest rate survey. So anyway, that is how much money you can actually make with a bookkeeping business. Again, don't get into it just for the money. The money's great. We need money to reach a lot of our goals that we've set for ourselves, but also get into it because you want to be an entrepreneur. You want the freedom and flexibility of owning your own business, but you also want to be helping people. You want to be doing good work and fulfilling work, and this type of work specifically. So that is how much you can make with your bookkeeping business. So I see a few questions coming in. If you've just jumped on the live, I'm taking all questions, any and all questions that you have as you start and grow your bookkeeping business. So feel free to, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, type your questions into the chat. So Philip, Mobile, Alabama. Perfect. Glad I got that right. Brandon is here. Hey, Brandon, it's good to see you. Brevin. Hey, Brevin. I'll throw up some comments here. Just joined the program yesterday. Welcome, Brevin. Good to see you. You have your first consultation next week. Not need to get cranking on QuickBooks Mastery. Definitely get cranking on QuickBooks Mastery. But if your first consultation is next week, I would recommend you jump to the closing the deal module and check out those lessons. So those will help you understand how to handle these consultations. We provide an outline to help you guide the conversation and provide some of the right questions to ask. The consultation is your opportunity to ask really great questions. Okay, we're not selling ourselves. We're not selling our services. We're asking really great questions to uncover the problems and challenges that small business owners are facing, the prospect that we're talking to is facing. And then we really want to attempt to determine how that's affecting their business. When possible, assigning a dollar figure to some of those problems in their business. If you don't figure these problems out, what is that costing you in your business? When you're able to do that, and again, you're asking questions, so the client's telling you this information, your fees are going to be a small percentage of the cost of that problem, and boom, you close deals all the time. Okay, so Brevin, jump to since you're in the mentorship program, jump to the closing the deal module. Okay, cool. Let's see, Jason De La Cruz. Hey, how do you convince a potential client that wants a bookkeeper on site to work with someone virtually? Well, here's what I'd like to encourage everybody to think about. We use this word convince a lot when we're talking about sales in many capacities, or sometimes we're working with a client and they are stuck in their ways. And it's like, how do we convince them? How do we convince them of this? How do we convince them to work with us? How do we convince them of that? What I really like to do is I really like to instead look at it through the lens of asking the right questions to determine what the motivations are behind that. In other words, if this client, wants a bookkeeper to work on site, I'm asking questions. What is it about having somebody on site that is important to you? Okay, what about that's important to you? Let's find out. Some people, me included. Okay, what am I? Well, I just had a birthday a few days ago, so I am 45 years old, and I'm stuck in my ways in some regards, and I have ideas and thoughts up here that I think are right and that I think I need, but I realize sometimes through either questioning from other people or my wife, especially, hey, some of those things maybe aren't as important as I think they are, and so those questions will uncover, hey, what is it about that's important to you? Because once we find out what about having somebody on site is important to them, then we can start to present alternative solutions to those issues. Maybe they think that having somebody on site is like, well, hey, I've got this stack of bills here. How else is this information going to get in? You got to come and got to grab these bills and you've got to enter them into QuickBooks. Well, hey, guess what? We've got some really great technology that makes it super simple to handle that process automatically. I don't need to be there. You don't really have to do anything. And boom, these bills are created in QuickBooks. Would you be interested in hearing about how that works? Okay, let's find the reasons why he feels like he or she feels like they need somebody to work on site. And so again, this happens whenever a client is throwing up sort of an objection, whether it's on a sales call or, no, I really need somebody here to print out checks, like a process related thing. Oh, okay. Well, hey, you may not know. So let's talk about some of the different options we have for paying bills, things that are going to save me time and as a result, you money. Okay. And are probably going to add more value to your business than if we were to continue doing things the way we're doing them now. So, Jason, really great question, but we're not convincing anybody of anything. What we really want to be doing is asking the right questions to draw out what's really underneath and what's causing them to say what they're saying. And then we can start prescribing solutions, okay, and making it make sense to them. Once something makes sense to them, okay, no convincing is necessary. All right. So really great question. Hey, Quentin, good to see you. All right. Brandon. Hey, Brandon. Yeah, well, Brandon joined May of 2022. Best decision you ever made. Thank you. I appreciate that. We love working with everybody in the program. And so Brevin is asking, how do you recommend adding value via advisory? How do you price the advisory aspect of your service? Really great question. We released what was it? Last week? Was it last Monday? No, it was a couple Fridays ago. The 3rd, June 3rd, we released an advisory training. So lots of people make the misconception that, hey, I'm doing bookkeeping and I'm doing really well, but now I want to add other services like, and tax is the one that a lot of people think is the next logical step. Okay, we're doing the books. That data is used for the tax return. Hey, I could do both books and tax. I could be a one-stop shop. That makes a lot of sense. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Unless you love tax, it's an awful idea. I have a video on my YouTube channel I encourage you to check out. It's like the next, I don't know, the evolution of bookkeeping or something like that, advisory services. Check that out. That's advisory services are really that next logical step, okay? Because tax is completely different. Okay, yeah, it does use some information from the books, but then tax is a completely different set of rules. It's complex, it's ever changing, it's all kinds of things. Advisory is simply taking the data that we have and interpreting it. So we're just looking at it and interpreting it and helping clients make better decisions for their business. And so we go bookkeeping, tons of value inherently in bookkeeping and what we do. Okay, tons of value already. You never need to provide advisory services to make multiple six figures in your bookkeeping business. Let's get that straight out of the way. But some people like partnering with companies on a higher level. Some people like offering advisory services. And when I'm talking about advisory services, I'm talking about things like budgeting, cash flow forecasting, P&L forecasting, strategic planning, modeling. Okay, modeling like, if I do this, what's the effect of my business? If I hire a new salesperson, what's the effect on my business? Because the first few months they're on board, they're not going to be generating enough revenue to cover their costs of their salary. So what does that look like for my business? Marketing, is my marketing earning a return? All these different things we can do for clients on an advisory level. So that's what we're talking about there. That's a huge value. Now we're partnering with companies and our clients, and we're now giving them a roadmap, a specific set of steps based on the data to make decisions on their business. We're recommending a plan of action that they take. So that's a higher level service. You could charge more for it, but again, it's a service that we should perform if we're genuinely interested in doing something like that. If we love bookkeeping and that's where our passion lies, then stay there. Okay. But that's what you can do with advisory. How do you price the advisory aspect of your service? Very similar to kind of how we handle bookkeeping consultations, but now we can price based on, and what we really want to do is we want to price based on the value that we're going to be able to create for clients. So now the consultation really has to be focused on, hey, what are the big business problems that we're solving for clients? And how much are these problems costing the clients not to fix? And we can price based on a percentage of that. Okay, so that's how we're going to do that. I also, Brevin, have other videos on the YouTube channel that talk about pricing, true value pricing. You'll want to check that out. Okay, so let me know if you have any other questions about that, Brevin. Lakeisha, hey Lakeisha, you're asking what are the best marketing strategies? I cover all of those in my program. So it's going to be different based on sort of what services you provide, where you're located. Some of the marketing strategies that are super effective, like ProAdvisor and Google My Business, are based on geography. So if you live in a really small town, you may need to look at other marketing opportunities like Facebook groups, LinkedIn, things like that. Okay, so it's really going to depend. But Lakeisha, I believe you're in my mentorship program. So reach out to us if you're having any questions, and we tell you exactly which ones to use. We help you write your marketing messaging, and people in our program are getting clients every day. So, and we even have solutions for if you'd like to leverage Google My Business and Pro Advisor, but you're in a small town, we've got solutions on how to maximize those as well, because those are two of the biggest ones. If I always say, and it's true, it's absolutely true. It happens 100% of the time when people come to me and say, hey, my Pro Advisor isn't working or my Google My Business isn't working. It's because, frankly, you're not doing it properly. So if you're utilizing those strategies but not seeing the results you want, there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. So that's what I'll say about that. Philip. Hey, Philip, you're asking, is $76 an hour or $750 a month realistic, just offering basic, or is that more realistic if you offer advisory services? Well, if we just go over here and we look at this is just bookkeeping. That's all that is. Just bookkeeping. Okay. You do not need to be offering advisory or tax or anything beyond that to realize an hourly rate of $76 or even more. Okay. And yeah, Andy's saying, hey, we've covered this already. It's absolutely possible to do with high value bookkeeping services. So yeah, Philip, I know you've asked a few questions in that neighborhood. So that's, if it's something you're debating on whether or not to do, you do not have to join a mentorship program to get started. Start realizing these things for yourself. There are all kinds of things that you can make use of to get started on your own. You get a free QuickBooks account. Inside that QuickBooks account, you have free Pro Advisor training, and you can pass a free certification. You can get your profile listed on the Pro Advisor profile and start getting clients that way. You've got all kinds of marketing opportunities that you can find. Lots of resources out there for you to determine whether or not this is right for you, number one. Number two, can I make this happen on my own, or would I like to speed up the process and start making the type of money I'd like to be making in a few weeks as opposed to 6 months or a year? You can start making those decisions. So I would recommend anybody watching this, if this is something you'd like to do, if a mentorship program like mine isn't right for you, that's fine. But if you have a genuine interest in this, find a way to get started on your own, because this isn't me talking about how great this is. This is, pretty much anybody. I'm not the only one online that you've seen talk about how great bookkeeping is, and you see how much you can make. So Philip, absolutely get started on your own if you feel like it's right for you. David, hey David. You're asking, what is the tax liability savings phrase most bookkeepers use? How much can you save company and taxes, and why? Well, it varies, obviously, based on the type of client you're working with in terms of how much you can save a company in taxes. QuickBooks had, it was a couple of years ago on their website that you could save, a company using QuickBooks saves an average of like $3,500 a year in taxes. And that's primarily because a lot of business owners are not capturing all of their expenses and even their income properly in either in QuickBooks if they're doing their own books, or if they're not doing their own books, they're just flying by the seat of their pants. Even companies that are on QuickBooks and are doing a pretty good job are missing out on a ton of deductions that they have no idea that they're missing out on. And so that's pretty much the big tax implication there. The other side of that, the flip side of that, and where we really come in as bookkeepers and add value, is that we are able to just, again, basic bookkeeping, help business owners focus on what they are passionate about and what they should be focused on, which is generating revenue as opposed to doing the books. And then we're also able to give them great information, solid data, with which that they can make good decisions for their business. How in the world can you determine what decisions to make in your business if you have no idea where you're at? You've got to know where you're at to determine what direction to go to get to where you want to be. The little, you go to the mall. Are malls a thing anymore? I guess they're outdoor malls, but lots of these indoor malls seem to be closing down. But you go to the directory and there's a little star that says you are here. Well, there's a reason it says, you are here. You've got to know where you are to know how to get to where you want to be. Have to do that. Okay. So we're able to not only help clients help them minimize their tax liability, but also help them maximize profitability. That's really our value proposition as bookkeepers. Okay. Bookkeeping should make you money. Okay. In fact, I do, for members of my mastermind program, I actually generate leads for them. And so we run Facebook and Google ads. And that's kind of our value proposition, is that, hey, bookkeepers that actually make you money. That's what your bookkeeping should do for you. And again, Philip, just basic bookkeeping. All right. Basic bookkeeping. Let's see. Edgar. Hey, Edgar. You are asking, what's the website address to the data that shows how much money and time that QBO saves? I remember that you use that data to create your QBO profile. Yes, I did. I've since evolved my QuickBooks Online profile. You just want to make sure that your marketing messaging really hits that value. Okay, what great things is a client or a prospect going to realize as a result of having worked with you? And so mine has evolved as I've gotten some really great client results, but the number that you're talking about, I don't believe it's on QuickBooks website anymore, but that's not to say that it's not a real number. I mean, it's still, you are still able to help clients minimize their taxes or help them reduce taxes just by doing a great job as a bookkeeper. So I don't believe, you can search the QuickBooks website. It might still be up there somewhere. Okay, somewhere. And then you're also asking, do you use the Profit First program with your clients? And if so, what has been your experience with it? I do not. I'm not a fan of the Profit First system, but a lot of people are. In fact, Andy Celine is one of them. Andy is a member of the group. And, it's all about focusing on, your business is yours and your client's business is theirs. And everybody should make their business work for them. They should be doing and running their business in the way that serves them, that they see best. And for a lot of people, Profit First makes a lot of sense. I'm not a fan of it, but so I, that's just me. Okay, that's just me. And Andy in big letter says, I love Profit First. So there you go. Okay, everybody needs to run their business based on, what inspires them. Okay, and what, how they see fit. There are many different ways to grow a successful business, bookkeeping business. I give people kind of the shortcut there, but within building that business, there's lots of different, nuances and things that you can kind of take advantage of. Okay, so Andy, I knew you were going to chime in and say that, so appreciate that. Zach, hey Zach, you are asking, love the program. Glad you enjoy it. Is the advisory role pretty much the same as virtual CFO services? Yes, very, very similar to virtual CFO. CFO, controller, advisory, absolutely. There are some advisory or CFO programs out there that are so focused on compliance that it is... Okay, let's talk about the role of a CFO. The role of a CFO's got a lot of different, hats. Wears a lot of different hats, a lot of different roles within an organization. Direction and strategic planning and things like that. Things like the traditional advisory services, even though they may be performed, budgeting, forecasting, things like that, be performed by somebody at a lower level within a company. I'm talking about a big company, that is. The CFO is kind of responsible for that guidance and that, making those recommendations in terms of the path that the company is going to take for move forward. They're also involved with compliance-based issues. And when I say compliance-based issues, I'm talking about the IRS. I'm talking about, if you're publicly traded, the SEC. I'm talking about internal controls, things that a company does internally to have controls over their, especially financial systems and processes. Think about a retail establishment. You've got employees working cash registers, access to cash. At a certain point, they've got too much cash in that register. They've got to drop it into the safe, and then that money goes somewhere else. And there's lots of things that you want to do internally to control the financial workings of the company. And so some of the programs out there focus very heavily on those internal controls and compliance-based issues. While those are important for a small business like we work with, a lot less important. Not only are they less important, when I say less important, there's less of a capacity for us to help in that regard. And then beyond that, what do you think a client, a small business client like the type we work with, is going to be more excited about? Hey, I'm going to help you, make sure that you're compliant and make sure your procedures for handling cash are correct, and prevent, theft and shrinkage as much as possible. Or I'm going to do things like cash flow forecasting and P&L forecasting, strategic planning, modeling that can double, triple your revenue over the next 2 to 3 years, and give you that roadmap and help you make those decisions to make that happen. Which do you think a small business owner is going to be a little bit more excited about? Or let's just be frank, a lot more excited about. Okay, they're going to be excited about growing their business. Okay, not compliance-based things. All right, so that's really, like, we talk about CFO services, but CFO kind of, I really like to add that word advisory in as well, because CFOs can also focus on that compliance stuff that is not top of mind for clients. Okay. Very good question, Zach. Let's see. Jason, hey Jason, would you recommend partnering with a tax professional to do taxes for your bookkeeping clients? That is absolutely a great idea. Absolutely a great idea. We have people in our program that partner with CPAs, and they're killing it. One person's doing a couple $100,000 a year in revenue just by partnering with a CPA. So absolutely, it can be a great referral opportunity. Okay, they refer you bookkeeping work, you refer them tax work. That can be an awesome and very profitable opportunity. Definitely. All right. This is, hey, Davida, good to see you. I'm a tax preparer and you have your own tax business, but I'm looking into bookkeeping because tax is seasonal and bookkeeping is yearly. That's another reason why bookkeeping is attractive, is that there's that recurring monthly revenue. The recurring monthly revenue, the margins are as high or higher than tax. Okay, when you're got your lead generation dialed in and you've got tech and automation set up so that you can deliver quality bookkeeping, deliver big value, so you can still charge big fees, but you're not spending all day delivering the service. Margins are huge. You're not dealing with tax notices throughout the year from your clients that cause you to just drop everything and fight those fires. You're not dealing with changes to the tax code, all that stuff. Busy season can be brutal. And it can also take away from, if you're trying to do tax and bookkeeping, it also can take away from your bookkeeping clients. Now, Davida, hey, if you love tax, and I always say this when I talk about why tax isn't necessarily the best added service when we're talking about bookkeeping, is that, hey, if you love tax, if you really love it, it's your business. Okay, do what you love. All right, but yes, bookkeeping absolutely can provide that recurring monthly revenue, that's money in the bank, which sounds corny and cliche, but it's true, because now we're able to determine and foresee what our cash flows are going to look like on a monthly basis. Okay, we're not guessing and hoping that tax season can cover us for the rest of the year. We have a very good idea of what to expect month to month. Okay, so Davida, absolutely. Check out my free training if you haven't already, boomingbookkeeping.com, and you can check out that free training. Gives you some information you can actually use to get started on your own. Okay, very cool. We've got Quentin. Hey, Quentin, you were wondering, how often do your new clients have to pay a fee upfront for cleanup and setup compared to those who don't? Would you say rarely, sometimes, or often? I'd say when we're talking about prospects coming to us wanting a monthly bookkeeping service, the percentage of those that need like a setup because they've got no accounting system, or they're using some other system and they don't like it and they want to move to like QuickBooks or something like that, or like we need to do a cleanup or a catch-up engagement, for me, it's about 50%. It's about 50%. So that's a lot. That's a lot. It can be even higher than that. It can absolutely be even higher than that. So, but generally about 50% of people. That's why in my mentorship program, we just released a few weeks ago a cleanup training, a comprehensive cleanup training that will guide you through that process. As well, we will help you with that work, okay, through our support, our weekly coaching calls, our Facebook group, and our support email. We help you with those cleanup engagements, catch-up engagements, monthly client work, all that stuff. Because, hey, I don't care where you get your training, whether it's an online program, you learn yourself through free resources online, or you go to community college, or you go to Harvard. Nobody's going to teach you everything you're going to need to know when you get out there and start working with real clients. So that's why it's a good idea to have a solid foundation of knowledge and then know where to look when you need help or you see something you've never seen before. Okay. And so that's kind of what a support system like mine and a mentorship program like mine does for you. Okay. So good question, Quentin. Good question. We want to be prepared for those cleanups. We want to be prepared for those catch-ups. That's obviously very, very important. It's a big part of what we do. Cool. I've got another question that came in here via email. I wanted to answer. How often are you in clients' books? Which is a really great question. And hey, I hate to say it, but it depends. It depends on the client. Okay. Some clients where you're, really working closely with because they're either larger, more moving parts, or maybe they've got some cash flow issues that, cash is really tight. So you're communicating very frequently to determine what priorities are in terms of bills to be paid. And again, we're pricing our services appropriately to account for those types of things. You're going to be in those books, more frequently, a couple times a week potentially. All right. Now you got the other end of the spectrum, and we've got a lot of people in the program that are focused on those smaller clients. Okay, the $300 to $500 a month range. Okay, those types of clients. Sometimes you're only in those books an hour a month for the entire month. Okay, there's not a whole lot of moving parts. They have a credit card and a bank account. Everything's connected in QuickBooks. Maybe they've got payroll, but it's being run through QuickBooks, so there's not a whole lot we need to do there. And no inventory, no sales tax. They're not entering bills because when we talk about accounts payable and entering bills, there is, especially with the smaller clients, a cost benefit of getting that information in the books. And so if this is kind of a cash basis client and they're a small client, it doesn't necessarily make sense to spend time entering all of these bills if it's not going to provide us a benefit, a big enough benefit on the other side to make decisions for the business. Okay. So if we're not entering bills, we're just recording expenses as they come in through the bank feeds. Super simple. You can knock that client out in an hour a month or less. So you're going in once a month potentially. Okay. So, and then obviously there's a spectrum in between. Okay. So I'll just make a quick note since I'm all caught up on questions in the chat. If you are on and you're watching, feel free to drop your question into the comments and I'll answer it while I'm here live, and I'll be around for a few more minutes. This is any question you have about starting or growing a six-figure bookkeeping business. Okay. So feel free to chime in, or if you're watching the replay, you're welcome to type in your question after we end the live, and I will come back and answer those as well. So let's go ahead and mark that one answered. And then let's see, what is considered full-time for a bookkeeper? Full-time for a bookkeeper is full-time for anybody else. It's 40 hours. So I don't know if I totally understand this question 100%, but I'll expand on it a little bit to hopefully answer it as well as the person who asked it wants it answered. Full-time for a bookkeeper is 40 hours. I was doing, and I'll broaden the question a little bit because I get this question a lot, which is, how many clients can I handle? Okay, how many clients can I handle? And a better question, because every client's different. A better question is not how many clients we can handle, but how much revenue can we handle? Okay, how much revenue can we handle? Because revenue for a client, okay, when we're talking about a client and what we're charging them in terms of fees, that fee is going to be very closely correlated to the amount of work we're doing. Both the quantity, the amount, and the complexity of work to be done. Okay, so it's really a better idea to focus on the revenue in terms of how much revenue can I handle on my own. And generally speaking, you can handle about 150, 165K in revenue on your own before you start to hit a limit where you're working more than 40 hours a week or you're forced to bring on some staff if you want it to continue growing. Okay. So that's kind of where you want to be. I was doing, just FYI, when I started, I was doing about 200K in revenue on my own. I was working about 55 hours a week. And, that's not in my world, having a small child and then wanting another one, that doesn't work. So that's when I started bringing on staff. Okay. So, um, you can do 200K in revenue if you want on your own, but it's going to be challenging without staff, or it's going to be challenging from a time management perspective, because I really encourage everybody to keep that work-life balance in mind. Okay, money is great, but I don't feel like it should come at the expense of, time with your family or pursuing the activities you love. Okay, you can make an incredible amount of money by scaling the right way. You hit 150, 160K in revenue, and then, hey, you want to keep going? That's awesome. Let's talk about bringing on a virtual assistant. Let's talk about bringing on a virtual bookkeeper that can help you manage the day-to-day work while you continue to scale. That's the way to start building wealth. Okay, you move from generating income to starting to build wealth when you start to do that. Okay, so if you look at the $76 an hour we talked about earlier, that translates into about 158K full time, and it really also says, if you do the math, that you can hit six figures. You can do about 100K in revenue, and you can work like 25, 26, 30 hours a month. And we have lots of people in the program doing that. Okay. But you've got to have your lead generation dialed in. You've got to invest the time to make sure you're getting a steady stream of prospects coming in. You've got to know how to price your services properly, and you've got to know how to communicate value and ask the right questions on the consultation call. You do that, you're in good shape. You're in really good shape. Okay. Edgar, you've got another question here. Let's see. When doing AR for your clients, do you run credit reports on their vendors as part of the service, or how do you help set up credit terms? No, generally no. Okay. I don't have one client. I do accounts receivable for a handful of clients, or my staff does anyway. And we don't, there are no like credit terms. It'll be like net 30, but they don't do they don't run like a history or do a credit check or anything like that. The types of small businesses we work with generally aren't doing those types of things. What is generally done is a pattern, a history is established. So initially, it's due on receipt. Okay, and then maybe after 6 months of good payment history, then you can move to terms. Okay, terms. So that's generally how that's handled, Edgar. All right, I am all caught up on questions, so I'll do a last call for questions before I sign off here. So if there are any last minute burning questions, feel free to type them in. If you're watching this on the replay, type in some questions here. I'll be back and I'll answer those as well in the comments. But I'll just. Oh, Quentin's got a last question here. What would you say are some of the biggest mistakes you see bookkeepers make with clients, or clients' biggest complaints? Biggest mistakes you see bookkeepers make with clients? I'd say pricing their services, undercharging for their services. And Quentin, you can feel free to type as I'm talking here if you want to keep this conversation going. If I'm not like if you were talking about maybe doing the work or something else. But the biggest mistake I see bookkeepers make by far is pricing. Absolutely pricing, undercharging for their services. There are bookkeepers out there. Most bookkeepers out there do not know how to price their services. It's just a blind guess. And that's never good for anybody. Okay. Typically, and if you watch other videos on the channel, I talk about the evolution of pricing. A lot of people start with hourly and they move to flat rate, which is essentially still just kind of a guess. You're guessing how much work this might take and applying some sort of hourly rate to it. And that's the flat fee, but that's doesn't make a lot of sense because you're still hourly. And then you're presenting a flat fee to a client that's like, this isn't based on anything. So you're just expecting and hoping the client sees the value. And then there's kind of the final evolution, which is, the true value pricing, which is really diving deep with the client on a call to determine, what the value is in dollars that we're going to be able to create for the client, and then pricing based off that. Okay, that's kind of the final evolution. But it's okay to go through the evolution. I would encourage you to skip the hourly though, and start with at least a flat fee, because hourly just has a ton of problems with it. But that's the biggest mistake I see that bookkeepers making. They undercharge for their services. They don't know how to charge, and a lot of that is born out of this need to get a client. Okay, I've got a prospect. In fact, a lot of times I'll hear from people. They say, "Hey, I got a prospect. I don't want to lose this prospect. How do I price it? I don't want to lose it." Well, the truth is, you don't have the prospect. You don't have a client. You've got nothing. Okay, if if you're before the call, then you have the call, and then you don't get, the client decides not to work with you. You haven't lost anything. You haven't lost anything at all. Coming at it from that perspective is very, very helpful. Okay. Whether you close the client or not, let's use that consultation as a learning opportunity. Let's do the best we can. But if we don't close the deal, let's talk about why we didn't close it. What can we do differently on the next call? Can we dive a little bit deeper to determine the real problems this person is having? Did they say, yeah, I need a bookkeeper because, my old bookkeeper, just wasn't doing a good job? And you're like, okay, well, hey, I do a great job for my clients. I'd be happy to talk to you about how I can do a great job about with you. How do you get paid, and how do you pay bills, and how do you? Well, we didn't dive deep enough into the problem. Okay, the problem isn't the bookkeeper wasn't doing a great job. Okay, there's something else. Like that's not specific enough. We've got to dive deeper. What does not doing a good job mean? Okay, when you say they weren't doing a good job, can you give me an example of something? Okay, maybe they're not getting reports. Maybe they're embezzling money. But who knows? There's a wide variety of things. But let's find out specifically what that problem is before we just start offering a solution. Okay, because we haven't gotten clear on what the specific problem is. Okay, and then finally, you said, our clients' biggest complaints. Clients' biggest complaints. I mean, if you're delivering an effective monthly bookkeeping service, you typically don't have a lot of client complaints. What can happen, and what sometimes does happen, is when you enter an agreement, like enter an engagement, I should say, and you're flexible on the price. In other words, you negotiated a little bit. They negotiated you down a little bit. I'm sure they didn't negotiate up. They negotiated down a little bit. So you're flexible on that. You got involved in the engagement, and they started asking for little things that were just kind of barely outside the scope of your engagement. Maybe you can look at this, HR related stuff, or maybe you can kind of do some of this work over here that's kind of outside of our scope. And that scope creep turns into a huge problem. And then the client has this expectation that you're just going to handle it, everything and anything that they throw at you. And then at some point, your life gets miserable enough because this client is always contacting you with unreasonable requests outside of the scope of your engagement. All hours of the day, they're trying to contact you. They expect an answer the same day, because we were overly flexible and not firm on the parameters of our engagement. So again, that's something that clients end up complaining about, but it's a direct result of a mistake that we've made in our business. Okay. When you're a bookkeeper and you start an engagement with a client, it is extremely important to get an engagement letter in place that clearly defines the scope of the engagement. And the second a client makes a request outside of that scope, we handle that properly. It's not to say that we don't handle it, because we want to be helpful, but we want to say, hey, okay, cool. Just FYI, this is outside of the scope of our engagement, but it should be kind of a quick thing. Sounds like this will be a one-off type of request. We'll go ahead and get that handled for you. Make it very clear that this isn't something that's going to be ongoing, and be very clear about that. Again, if we constantly live in fear of losing the client or losing the prospect, then we're at the mercy of our clients, and we allow ourselves at times to get run over. Okay, don't do that. Stay strong, hold firm to what you believe in and the decisions you've made for your business. You'll find clients don't get upset because you won't do this work that's way outside of the scope. They'll say, okay, and they'll go find somebody else. I mean, for the most part, clients are reasonable creatures. Okay, so they're reasonable creatures, and if we can clearly communicate how that lies outside the scope of our engagement, typically they'll understand that. And so the ones that don't are the reason that we need to have our lead generation dialed in. We need to have a stream of people reaching out to us. Okay. We need to ensure that we do not feel like we are constantly at the mercy of prospects and clients that have unreasonable demands or want us to work for $150 a month. Okay. And we do that by having the confidence of knowing we've got a line of people, not behind us, behind them. Line of people behind them waiting to work with us. Okay, so that's very, very powerful. So great question, Quentin. And Quentin, you said, yeah, you just did this with a client before joining the program. You didn't charge for the cleanup. Yeah, cleanup is something you definitely need to charge for because, those things can they can be involved. They can be an involved process. So we definitely want to charge appropriately for cleanups. Now, setups, that's something that we can use our discretion depending on the complexity of setting this client up on QuickBooks. I'm generally of the opinion that I'm not charging a few $100 or $500 to set up a file. Unless there's some complexity to it. They're using, they've got inventory issues and they've got a complex chart of accounts, or they've got custom invoice styles and things like that. I'm not interested in collecting a few $100 off of a client that over the life of the engagement is going to, if it's $1,000 a month client, that's $12K a year. They stay with us on average 6 years. That's $72K. If that client's worth $72K to me, I'm probably not going to charge them a $300 QuickBooks setup. I'm going to get the engagement started on the right foot, and life is good for everybody. So cool. I have answered everyone's questions. Again, if you're watching this later, the replay, drop your questions. I'll be happy to answer those. And again, I'm live on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook. If you are not following me on any one of those 3 platforms, definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can join my Facebook group. Lots of great conversation happening in there, and connect with me on LinkedIn as well. So as you know, every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, I go live and we're talking about everything you need to add 6 figures of bookkeeping and advisory revenue to your business. So if you'd like to contact me between now and next week, feel free to shoot me a message on Facebook and I'll point you in the right direction as best I can. So until then, have a great week and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.